Ms. Bradford approved. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Ms. Beebe, second by Ms. Regan. Next item, please. Oh, is there any discussion? Any opposition? Next item, please.
The next item is item 4.1 on page 6, a consideration of revisions to Bulletin 746, Louisiana Standards for State Certification of School Personnel, regarding policy related to the implementation of Act 54 and its impact on the certification of school personnel. The department recommendation is to approve as a notice of intent.
Do I have a motion to approve? Second by Mr. Bennett. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Thank you very much. I just wanted to highlight for the committee, in March, the board voted to align certification policies for standard teaching certificates with the requirements of Act 54. So this was a couple of months ago. The board did that. This month's changes align other sections of the bulletin with these requirements as well. So what you're seeing in front of you is an attempt to reflect the law in the bulletin rather than a significant change in policy that's not already been made. The bulletin would be changed to reflect the following. One, to clarify that certificates renew every 5 years, and that for renewal, the certificate recipient must be effective 3 out of 5 years in our COMPASS evaluation system. That is per the law and not a new policy being raised here in front of the board, but is just an attempt to reflect the law in the bulletin. It separates the education leader endorsement to be its own certificate that is tied to leadership effectiveness to ensure that highly effective teachers don't lose their teaching certificate if they are ineffective as a leader, meaning that these are effectively two different things, and therefore that if someone is ineffective as a school leader or as an education leader, that they wouldn't then lose their certificate as a teacher as well. They're two different things. They should be measured in two different ways and thus have two different licenses according to this regulation. Transition teachers who'd be on track to receive a lifetime certificate would be placed on a renewable certificate track. In other words, teachers who have not attained the lifetime certificate would be subject to the provisions of Act 54 like every other teacher, not guaranteed a lifetime certificate, but like most teachers now and all teachers in years hence would be subject to renewable certificate in our state. And it would make some clarifications for what the board may do. It will say that the board may suspend or may not renew certificates if there are 3 years of ineffectiveness. It also says that the board may suspend or revoke certificates if there is certified cheating that is attributable to one teacher. So it just clarifies the board's authorities with respect to revocation or non-renewal of licenses. I just wanted to highlight that those are the main points of this. I know that many of you have put in a great deal of work and thought into this, but for the board's sake, I thought it would be worth clarifying those points.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Sure.
And this is just a technicality that I need clarification on page 8. 345, non-public Montessori teacher certificate. In D, it says it's out 5 years, may be renewed for 5 years at the request of an LEA. Since this is a non-public, is that correct? They go through their local LEA? Someone from the department can answer that?
I might invite one of our department staff to answer that specific question.
I mean, generally speaking, non-publics go through the state and not through the LEA. So I'm questioning if this is correct. Is this a new procedure? Page 8.
Could you guys just
Good morning. I'm Barbara Burke from the Division of Certification. The non-public school leader is considered the Louisiana Employing Authority, so they would be still requesting that renewal of that certificate. I hope that clarifies.
It does for me, but I'm wondering if it will for everyone.
This is non-public Montessori.
Yeah, But I think now that we know that, we can help that clarify.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Beebe?
Ms. Thank you, Ms. Hill. Ms. Barbara, on page 9, as it relates to reinstatement guidelines, and I think that falls under family and consumer sciences, but is that generic to the reinstatement guidelines, generic to all individuals who have a lapsed certificate and they've been away from the classroom for 5 years, and to reinstate? I'm just concerned with the language that they will have earned 6 semester hours of credit immediately preceding the request for reinstatement. Generally, as I know it to be, that you can hire the applicant and they have a certain time frame in which to earn those credits.
And Ms. Beebe, I apologize. Just to be clear, you're talking about the language that was not changed. Is that right? In other words, this is the language that is old and that is not changed in the bulletin.
As I understand, it's the reinstatement guidelines, but I do know that we've had some experiences where the certificate has lapsed and they have the teacher applicant has a certain time frame in which to get those 6 hours.
Yeah, so why don't we speak to it? I just want to say for the record that we're not talking about anything that we've proposed here. Instead, we're talking about something that has been pre-existing as well, but why don't we speak to it?
So, Ms. Beebe, the policy that has always been in place, if a teacher has a 5-year break in service, we are not making any changes to Bulletin 746.
I understand
As far
this,
as
but
that.
my interpretation is, so, experience versus what is in policy, that they do have time, they're granted time in which to earn those 6 credits.
I think they can be put on a
We do still grant the 1-year extension. If a teacher is ever has a break in service, no matter what type of certificate the teacher holds, we do grant the 1-year grace period for that teacher to continue to earn those 6 hours of credits. We are not making any change to that part of the bulletin.
Okay, and while we're on this, it's still in the same area, and it deals with revocation of page 16, chapter 9, actions related to suspension, denial, and revocation of Louisiana certificates. Could you clarify the process beyond the traditional public schools in the way of non-public, the monitoring process of licenses? Are they individuals, teachers in the non-public setting? Do we track that at the Department of Ed?
Oh, yeah. If you're an approved school, they're certified as, according to the regulations, are either qualified to teach.
Okay, but as we move forward with the new legislation in charters, the teacher does not have to have a certification, but must have a bachelor's degree and so forth. Is there a mechanism in place where we will track those individuals?
I'll let you answer, but yeah.
There is, I'm sorry, Molly, go ahead.
Are you referring to their, I'm sorry, Molly Horseman with the department. Are you referring to their evaluation results, Ms. Beebe?
I'm referring to their credentials, because we're saying that these individuals must have a minimum of a bachelor's degree. So are we communicating from the Department of Ed, the Office of Teacher Certification, and those entities? Do we have that communication in place where we're tracking? Because as we move forward on the agenda, we do have cases of fraudulent activity where individuals have indicated that they have degrees, but they don't have them. So is there a mechanism in place where we track these individuals?
It's a new law, and as with all of the new regulations regarding charter schools or non-public schools or what have you, we're creating or adjusting our review process so that these kinds of laws will, in the annual review process the charters undergo, will be accounted for. That's not a certification issue. This being the Office of Certification, that's not a certification issue. It's like any other legal compliance issue. There's an annual review process that charters go through. Part of that will be discussing with them the degree to which they're in compliance with the law.
But have we considered the possibility, just as we have in traditional public schools, for example, individuals who are on the TAT, the Temporary Authority to Teach, they're not yet certified, but a license was issued to each applicant meeting that criteria. So is there any, have we given thought to perhaps implementing such a system to where there could be a better opportunity for the certification of, I understand they're not certified applicants or employees, but so that we could have a better system of checks and balances?
There is, there are literally dozens of laws that apply to charter schools. We have a system that reviews each of them, and it asks essentially for them to be able to report on the degree to which they are following laws. It has people do site visits to have discussions with them to see things in action, and we're going to make this component of the law an instance of that. But as it's not part of the certification process, we're not going to run that out of the certification office. We'll run it out of the charter office. And that team isn't immediately in front of us, but that will be built into the annual review process, yes.
So you are making provisions that we will have a tracking mechanism to identify those individuals who may be fraudulent. They may apply at a school and say they're certified, that they have the credentials, and in essence it may not be the case.
I don't actually know whether or not we will have a specific tracking mechanism for that. There are, as I say, dozens of laws that apply to charter schools. Some of the measures we track very specifically, some of them we don't. This law just passed about a month and a half ago, so we haven't yet established whether or not we'll have a specific tracking mechanism for it. But be assured that we will be asking charter schools about it, and if there are any violations of the law, as is appropriate, it will be tied to their authorization. Their compliance with the law is tied to their continued ability to be authorized as a charter school. If they violate that, then they're at great risk of not being authorized any longer. And so we will be certainly looking at it and so on, but it's not going to be out of the certification office.
Okay, board members, do we have any more discussion? Okay, we have a public comment. And I'd just like to remind everyone that you have 3 minutes. Mr. Wayne Free.
Wayne Free, Louisiana Association of Educators. I don't know that I have a comment as much as a question. The department will no longer track whether or not people are certified and whether or not they have met the standard for felony convictions and all those kinds of things, that we won't have a record, that we can't go into Teach Louisiana and see whether or not they actually graduated from an accredited university or any of those kinds of things. Was that what was indicated?
Would you like to speak on this, Superintendent White?
Is your comment done, or do you want me to respond to that?
I think it was a question, because it sounded like the department was no longer tracking any employment within that function. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
All right, then please help me understand again.
Help you understand what?
If I'm hired by a charter school and I have a degree from a online university, which may or may not be certified in Louisiana, how will you know?
We will do a review at the school site with the school of the employment credentials of its people. As one of, it's in the law. It's in the statute. The statute specifically calls for that. Thus, as with dozens of other statutory requirements, we will be there to review it with the school. If there are violations of that, then a school is at risk of no longer being authorized, as it's a violation of state education law. No different from dozens of other statutes.
then the department will have a limited ability to determine. Let me ask it a different way. So each private or parochial or charter school must maintain the certification list and provide it to the department?
Their certification has obviously changed. In the statute, there is not a
Whatever the new
provision. I'm
certification
sorry.
is.
There's
Right.
not a provision with, granting certification any longer in charter schools. So I suppose there will not be a certification record as there has been in the past, but there is a requirement that teachers have a bachelor's degree, and thus we will be, as with other legal provisions across dozens of other laws, checking to make sure that those things are followed as part of the
Let me
annual
ask
authorizing.
one other specific question then, because I'm having trouble getting my mind around this. Let's say I'm convicted of felony, and during my 4 years in prison, I do an online degree, and then I get out of prison and I'm hired by a charter school. How would you track that?
That's no different from how it would be tracked today. I can call up our legal team if you all want to talk through the specifics of criminal background as it regards educating in charter schools.
Hi, Joan Hunt. The criminal background history information is part of certification, but it's also part under 1712 and 15587.1. You can't be employed by a public or non-public school if you've been convicted of certain crimes under 15587.1, except in very limited circumstances when it's been approved by the judge and by the district attorney where the crime occurred and where you were convicted of that crime. So regardless of whether it's a certification issue, it's an issue that they have to do criminal background checks, and there are prohibitions against hiring people who have been convicted of certain crimes.
And the department then would find out when it did whatever the review process is, if that were to occur, or if they were from a non-certified institution.
That's correct.
Um,
The department, you're asking, is there a review of it? The answer is yes.
Let me recommend to each of you as BESE members.
Mr. Freed,
May I make one recommendation?
Okay, go ahead.
And then I'll stop. I would strongly recommend that as you look through how you're going to develop policies around this issue, that you put together a committee of interested individuals, of school boards, of lots of folks, as you draft further regulations around this policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for board members' sake, just to be clear, and I appreciate Mr. Freeh's comments, this is now part of the charter law. And any year that the charter law has changed, the charter review process has to change as well, so that we collect information about different things, and that's taking place and will be put into place this fall for our charter schools.
Okay, any more discussion, board members? Any opposition? Motion approved. Next item, please.
The next item is item 4.2 on page 18, considerations of revisions to Bulletin 130, regulations for the evaluation and assessment of school personnel, Section 303, measures of growth in student learning, the value-added model. The department recommendation is to approve as a notice of intent.
So moved.
By Ms. Desu, second. Do I have a second? By Ms. Bradford. Any discussion?
If I could just provide comment, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you know, that in the regulations, the teachers who are evaluated in a way where value-added data is taken into effect, you have to meet certain criteria in order for them to take effect. You can't, for example, have only taught students for a month. Those students wouldn't count. You can't teach a subject where there's not a standardized test. Obviously, those students couldn't be counted. Similarly, there's a minimum number of students to which the state had assigned value-added data. And if you didn't have that minimum number of students over the course of the school year, you couldn't qualify as having that value-added formula applied to you as a teacher. That number was 5. It is our assessment that that number is low. And based on a large number of conversations with teachers, I think we validated that 10 is a standard number across the country. And the reason that we thought, if we really look at it, while the overall effect is not great on switching from 5 to 10, it is fair to say that for an individual teacher, one student who has something, dramatic happen that's sort of inexplicable, when you only have 5 students, could be a very significant impact on the score. If you have 10 students, obviously significantly less of an impact. We think, therefore, more fair. It doesn't really move many different teachers out of the formula, or it doesn't reduce the effect of this policy overall. We think it's more responsible to teachers, so we propose moving that minimum number from 5 students to 10 students.
Any more discussion, board members?
I'd like to make a comment, please.
Sure.
I'd like to commend the department and the superintendent for listening to the feedback of the teachers and also looking at how we can make this model stronger based on what other states are doing. So I appreciate you guys strengthening this value-added model. I know it's of great concern to the teachers that we make sure that this is as fair as possible, and so I just appreciate your move in this direction.
Any opposition? Motion approved. Next item, please.
The next item is item 5.1 on page 20. It is the consideration of the revocation of the Louisiana Ancillary Teaching Certificate, AN 0006771, issued to Mr. Kenrar D. Broussard due to a felony conviction, and the department recommendation is to revoke.
A motion
Approval.
by Mr. Roma, a second by Ms. Bradford. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion approved. Next item, please.
The next item is 5.2 on page 22. A consideration of a records review regarding the revocation of the Louisiana out-of-state teaching license, OS 51315, issued to Ms. Tyranisha Booth due to the submission of fraudulent documentation. The department recommendation is to revoke.
A motion.
I'll move approval.
Second. Okay, second by Mr. Bennett. Any discussion? Any opposition? Next item, please.
Next item is item 5.3 on page 24. Consideration of a records review regarding the revocation of the out-of-state teaching certificate, OS 510689, issued to Mr. James Payton due to the submission of fraudulent documentation, and the department recommendation is to revoke.
I'll move approval.
Approved by Mr. Roma, second by Mr. Bennett. Any discussion? Any opposition? Item is approved. Next item, please.
Okay, the next item is item 5.3 on page 26. Consideration of a records review regarding the issuance of a Louisiana teaching certificate appropriate to the credentials of Ms. Sharon LeBlanc, and we need a recommendation to either grant or deny issuance.
I move to grant.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Granted by Ms. Beebe, second by Mr. Romer. Any discussion?
Is the individual here?
Not to my knowledge. She had indicated.
She's here. Come forward. Would you like to come forward, Ms. LeBlanc?
While she's coming, can I get a bit of clarification? Is the motion to consider, or is the motion to grant certification?
The motion is to grant.
To grant.
Grant certification.
So this is your chance to consider.
Thank you.
Ms. LeBlanc, would you like to say anything, or?
Excuse me, I'm a little nervous.
That's okay.
I just would like to say that I am truly, I'm not going to sit here and give excuses for anything that was done previously in my past, but I've done my best to just rectify and make amends. I really enjoy teaching. I just really wish that you all would consider, granting me the opportunity to show you that that I have rehabilitated, I have changed, and that I'm ready to live up to the credentials and standards of Louisiana State Board of Education.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Ms. LeBlanc, did you make restitution?
Yes.
Okay, I just didn't see that anywhere in your packet. I
I'm
thought
sorry,
you probably had,
previously.
but I wanted to give you that opportunity to answer that. Thank you.
I'll make a quick comment. I don't know if anybody needs it. I mean, I read the background, and there seemed to be a very sincere and valid effort to correct a mistake that had been made. And in addition to that, she had a number of very good recommendations from people that she had worked with, and and has exhibited quite a bit of leadership where she's been. So we all make mistakes, and I would recommend that we grant certification in this instance.
And as the chair, I had the opportunity to look at the material as well, and I just want to say that, to our board members, we all make mistakes, and, we have a higher being that forgive us for what we have done. And I want to commend you for making those corrections. And as the board member, after reading the material, after looking at everything, I would like to grant as well to this young lady her certification. So do we have a motion to approve to grant?
We have a motion.
Okay, so do we have a second? Okay, so item is approved. Okay. Any opposition? Okay. The item has been approved, and we'll be granting you your certification. Next item, please.
That was actually the last item.
Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Ms. LeBlanc?
Okay, second by, okay, second? Okay.
We're good. The next committee meeting will be starting at 9:35.
1 of 4.